Man may seek satisfaction in the pursuit of personal things, unmindful of the law that says he shall lose that which he seeks for selfish gain. But through the losing he soon finds that the fall of the personal but marks the ascent of the spiritual. He realized that man's extremity is God's opportunity. You must know that you are entitled to every good and perfect gift of God, and you must prepare to receive those gifts through the knowledge of God as your divine nature. If you separate yourself from God in thought, you will also separate yourself from Him in manifestation. In order to enter fully into the joy of life, you must seek life and joy, for the fullness and joy that life gives to all humanity. The laws for the establishment of heaven here on earth, which Jesus taught and which you have been seen applied in a very small measure, are exact and scientific. Man, being the Son and true likeness of God, contains within himself the true Spirit of God, his Father. He can discern and use the laws of his creative parent and bring them into full operation in his world of affairs, if he only will. Then she said they would be pleased to answer any questions he might like to ask. Ray said he did not have any questions to ask, for he had been too deeply stirred to want to ask questions. He just wanted to think. He said he had some things he wanted to say, and he hoped they would not take offense, for offense was not intended in any way. He continued, "We came here, as we supposed, to find the remains of a people long since dead and gone. Instead, we find a people living a far more wonderful and active life than can be comprehended. If this thing that we have seen could be heralded abroad, you would have the whole world bowing at your feet." The three ladies said that they did not wish the world to bow at their feet, but they longed to see all mankind bowing at God's feet. They went on to say that mankind already had too many idols. The ideal was the thing really needed. Here the visitors, with the exception of the one who had called at the door of the tent, arose, saying they must be on their way. With hearty handshakes and Godspeed and invitations to visit them at any time, they disappeared as suddenly as they had come, leaving Ray and his party staring at the place where they had stood. After a moment he turned to the man who had remained and asked his name. He was told that it was Baird Spalding. Then Ray said to him, "Do you mean to say that you are able to come and go at will, without any visible means of conveyance, as we have just seen, defying every known law of gravity or physics?" Baird Spalding answered, "We do not defy any law, neither do we harm a single law of man or God. We cooperate with and work according to all laws, both of nature and God. The means of locomotion which we use, although invisible to you, are perfectly visible to us. The trouble is you do not see them, consequently you do not believe. We see, believe, and know, and we are able to utilize them. When you open your understanding to know and see and use them, you will soon find that the law which we use is definite and far more capable of being put to greater uses for mankind than the limited laws which you see and use. Some day you will find that you have only touched the surface of man's possibilities. We are always pleased to assist you in any way we can." Chandler Sin said that this friend had come to invite us to return to our outfitting point by way of his village, as the trail was shorter and the distance could be made with one day less travel at this time of the year. This invitation was readily accepted, and Baird Spalding said he would return with us. It developed later that he was a descendant of the once prosperous people that had inhabited the Gobi region. Next chapter. We had finished the work mapped out for the combined expedition and were prepared for an early morning start for our base, where the company would separate, and all except a part of 11 would return to their respective homes. 4 of the party, myself included, had decided to accept the invitation of our friends to return to the village of the Temple of the Tall Cross, our former winter quarters. As we stood watching the sunset on the eve of our departure, One of the party said that he had begun to wonder how old civilization and religion really were, and whether the two had really come hand in hand down the long ages of time. Jas replied, "That depends upon what you mean by religion. If by the use of the word religion you mean creed, dogma, or sect, or perhaps superstition, it is very young and does not antedate 20,000 years. But if by the word you mean a reverence for the true philosophy of life, a true reverence for life itself, thus a true reverence for the sublime purity of God, of the great creative cause, then you may trace this back beyond all history, all mythology, all allegory, to the time of man's first advent upon earth. Before kings, emperors, or man-made rule held sway in the heart of the first man, there burned or shone forth the greatest reverence for the source of all life and the beauty of that life. The beauty and reverence of that pure soul shines undimmed through the long ages, and so it will shine on undimmed through all eternity. When man first took up life, he knew full well the source. He had the deepest reverence for that source, and that reverence you now know as the Christ. But as we come on down the dim corridors of time, we find them divided into the innumerable sects, creeds, and dogmas, until those corridors are divided into such a network that they present a veil of disbelief and superstition. Who, I ask, divided them? Did God or man? Who is responsible for the great vortex of sin and inharmony this division has caused? Will you pause for a moment and think deeply? Then ask yourself, is it God or man that is responsible? Then think, does God sit somewhere in the sky, looking down on this great web, altering a condition here or a condition there, interfering here or smoothing out a life there, praising one or condemning another, holding up the hands of one while he tramples the other? No, if there be a true giver of life, he must be omnipotent, omnipresent, and omnipotent, far above, around, and in all, pouring out his life to all, through all, and above all. Else he is not a true giver of all life. Thus you may differentiate this ideal into the innumerable varieties of form, but when you reach the final one, you will find that you reach the one at the beginning also, and the two become a cycle with no beginning and no end. Were this not so, there could be no basis, no hypothesis, no truth. Here someone asked, do you attempt to overcome death? The answer was, oh no, we rise up over death by letting life express to its absolute fullness. Thus we do not know even what death is. To us there is nothing but more abundant life. The great error of the majority is that they attempt to hide their religion behind some veil or secret, instead of throwing it open to the broad expanse of God's pure sunlight. Someone of the party asked whether Jesus abode with them, meaning Justice people. He replied, no, Jesus does not live with us. He is only drawn to us by the thoughts we have in common, the same as he is drawn to all by the thoughts they have in common. Jesus abides only to be of service, as all great souls do. He went on to say it was while sojourning in northern Arabia that Jesus had access to the library that had been collected from India, Persia, and the Trans-Himalaya region. Here Jesus first contacted the secret teachings of the Brotherhood. These teachings only served to drive home more firmly the conviction already forming that the true mystery of life was God expressing through the Christ in the individual. He saw that, in order to express this fully, he must withdraw from all forms of worship and worship God, expressing through the individual and God alone. He saw that in order to demonstrate this fully, he would be obliged to withdraw from those who had taught him, even though by withdrawing he should incur their displeasure. This did not deter him for a moment. So steadfast was he in his devotion to his cause.